Brilliant. So it's Danny Flexon here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by my good friend, top trainer manager Adam Booth. Adam, how you doing?
I'm good. Good evening. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Want to talk to you in a minute at least about Eubank Jr. and Ben because I know you were part of the Sky Sports team covering the fight on Saturday night. But I have to ask first of all about the unexpected reunion that took place on Sky Sports' cameras on Saturday night between yourself and former charge George Groves.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I thought you were
What
going
did
to
you
talk
think
about
I
the
was going to
reunion
say?
of Eubanks Junior and Senior.
Oh, right. No, we'll get on to that. This is far
We
more
can down that
important.
path.
Um, am I right in thinking that's the first time you guys have spoken since your management contract was dissolved?
No, you're wrong.
Damn
We've
it.
spoken a few times. We've bumped into each other at Wasserman's office a few times.
Okay. Because I interviewed George maybe 2 years ago now on our podcast, and at that point, he hadn't spoken to you since the moment I mentioned, according to him anyway. But he,
Mm,
go on.
No, we bumped into a show. We had a chat at a show. No, we've spoken maybe 3 or 4 times over the last few years.
Was this any different because you were brought together on camera and you were working together essentially?
Uh, no, not really. No, he was there. We were chatting, and then Anna said, "Oh, get ready. We're going to do a bit for the big reunion." I'm like, "What big reunion?" And that was it.
Did you
It was
say,
a
are
bit
you
of,
talking
it
about
was just a bit
senior or
of,
junior?
it was just a bit of time filling bum fluffery in between rounds. That's what it was.
Time filling bum fluffery. They didn't say that on Sky. This is why we need you on there more often. Very, very eloquent, very articulate. Um, what did you guys talk about before you were on camera?
Honestly, I can't remember. I can't. Kids, stuff. I don't know. George is like sometimes George is in one of those moods where he just wants to constantly take the piss and just make himself laugh. And I sort of sensed he was in that type of mood, so I kind of just half matched his energy, and it wasn't. I don't know. It was just words evaporating into nothing. It was
Now,
nothing. It was nothing meaningful or substantial.
when he was on our podcast, he told us his kind of version of events of when you guys uh, split, I suppose is the easiest term. But he said, I don't know for sure if that's exactly what happened. Maybe when Adam and I get together, we'll work it out between us. Did you work it out between you? Are you on the same page now?
No, we haven't. No, we haven't discussed that. Maybe one day we will, but no, I've
Oh,
never spoken about it. I'll
sure.
chat to him about it, but that's it.
And are you guys gonna carry on from here? Is this kind of a new beginning? Have you got each other's numbers? Will you stay in
You
touch?
you see, you're trying to much ado about nothing here, Danny. You're trying to
They
make
made it a
something.
segment on Sky Sports. It's not me that made
It
it
was a
much ado about
30
nothing.
second segment filling in between rounds. That's all it was.
Well, it was effective. It's led
Was
to
it?
this.
Really? It surprises me what some people are interested in watching. It really does.
Would you say you're friends now?
I don't, I don't like. We're not enemies. Put it that way.
Okay.
We don't go for Costa coffee, but we're not enemies. I turned round. He was standing there. How you doing? How you doing? Chat, chat, chit chat. It was a bit like that. Then Anna rocked up with the spotlight and a camera, and then turned it off, and we cracked on.
Just went your separate ways as if nothing had ever happened
Well, he went ringside to commentate, and I was staying in the studio bit.
in the pundits area. Yeah.
So actually, I saw it. I was only with him for like 3 or 4 minutes.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'll move on from that. Let's talk about the fight itself. How good was it? I know technically it might not have been the best, but in terms of the drama throughout, the consistent drama throughout the 12 rounds, what did you make of it?
I think you're right. It's a really good assumption. The first half of the fight felt like it was tense. Certainly the first 4 rounds or so, where no one really gained a significant advantage. I thought Junior's jab was quite effective. They were
Mm.
Conor was obviously trying to find his way into a fight, having not boxed for so long and in a new weight division. He looked a little bit uncomfortable at times, jumping in from out of distance. But then, and I didn't think Junior's legs looked great. And then in the second half of the fight, or as the second half of the fight progressed, I think Junior felt that the way to take control of the fight was literally just to go up close and have a trade up and a tear up. And at that point, it became a very exciting, entertaining event forget boxing, forget the art of boxing. It was two fellas with that phenomenal family history that played out magnificently on the night, and they served up great entertainment. I think Conor definitely went up in my estimation in that fight. He proved something that he's never had to prove before. Well, saying that, he got off the floor against Cedric Paynor at the York Hall Bethnal Green, so he had actually proved that he had a little something about him, because to get up off the floor for anyone proves a point. And even going way back, I remember I was at a show and I was sitting with him and his dad, and we were talking, and his dad was asking me my opinion on what he should do. This is before he turned pro. And I said, get some amateur experience first. And Nigel at the time was happy I was saying that. Anyway, Conor decided to ignore anything that came out of my mouth. And then his pro debut was at a packed O2 Arena. So, to do that with that amount of pressure on yourself means you've got balls. You're either an absolute lunatic or you've just got balls. He then proved it against Paynor, and he proved it big time against Eubank Jr. on Saturday night, when the bigger man was swarming him, the bigger man was catching him, but he still kept biting down and spitting him off with his shots and combinations. I think ultimately it was the size difference that enabled Junior, every time they bumped into each other and it knocked Conor back and he took advantage of it in those trades. I think that played out a little bit. But let's not get too clever with it. It was a night of incredible entertainment, and I was fortunate enough to be working for Sky at a great position where I was able to indulge seeing the whole venue as well as being at ringside. And I've been in some big events over the years. I think that one topped them all.
Wow. And that's including the ones you've been involved in directly as a trainer or a manager.
Yeah, I mean, obviously for different perspective, right? Because I've got to look at it sort of from an outsider's point of view. When probably the one that I felt the most was when Hay defended against John Ruiz in his first world title defense, having beaten Valuev and became that overnight superstar. And I promoted it at the MEN. We sold 20,000 tickets like that. And the atmosphere when David was being introduced was something that I'd never experienced before or since. So I'll forever remember that. But in terms of an event that I'm not involved with like that, yeah, that one topped a lot. When Chris Senior appeared, so there were two versions. There was the Sky version and I think the DAZN version.
Right.
And so I didn't see the bit where he arrived in the car. So I'm standing on the platform, and all of a sudden, the weight of the roar of the crowd went up. So I turned thinking there might have been a scrap going on. And then Johnny and I turned around and saw the monitor and see them coming out the lift. And it was just an epic bit of television. And then from that point on, the way that the night played out really, really did meet the expectation and the hype, which very rarely happens. But it matched up with the expectation and the hype. So, huge props and thanks to everyone that made that happen, because we all enjoyed it.
Do you believe that Senior's appearance was only decided on the day, as
I
team
do.
claim? Yeah.
From what I know, yes, I do think he decided on the day, and I think we're really glad he did.
Did you score the fight?
No, I was too busy enjoying it. So, because if I'm going to score a fight round by round and I make my little marks during the round, I don't enjoy it the same way. What I realize is you can't commentate on a fight and score a fight. You can't enjoy watching a fight and score a fight. If you're going to score a fight, you've only got to literally be a data man and read what's going on and remit. I don't try and remember it. When I score a fight, I mark moments through a round, because in a 3 minutes you can forget what it may have happened in the first 30 seconds. So that's how I score it. My impression was that I thought Junior was effective with his jab in the first early rounds. Then Conor started having some success, but the amount of rounds that Junior seemed to dominate in that last 4 or 5, certainly the last 4 rounds, on the balance of it, okay, yeah, no, he won. And I've seen enough fights to trust that perceptive scoring.
Now, I spoke to Eubank Jr.'s manager last night, and he said they'd like to do it again in
Which
September.
one? Which
Napa.
one? Okay.
So he said they'd like to do it again end of September as has been proposed, but without the rehydration clause.
Uh-huh.
My question to him was, how do you sell a rematch based on the chances of Conor Benn to avenge defeat if more things go against him, like removing the rehydration clause?
Well,
Do we need?
forget the rehydration clause for a second. I'd want to see the rematch because Conor now knows what it's like to be in with the bigger fella. And naturally, you will adapt to that. You've got that experience. Going into that fight, he just kind of believed he belonged there and that he could do that. Now he knows he belongs there and he can do that. And just that confidence alone, I do believe that Conor Benn could be better. I'm not sure Eubank Jr. can, with the terms that they've agreed on that rehydration clause. Now, remember, at the moment, this is all anecdotal because no one's actually said what that as far as I'm aware, no one's actually said what the rehydration terms were. Okay. Now, so he had to weigh in at 160. All right, missed it slightly because he was late to the scales and ran out of time. What I think a term in the contract is how much weight was he allowed to put on up until the morning of fight day, which would have been a lot of water weight. How did they restrict that initial rehydration? Because then after that initial rehydration, he could then carry on drinking water. I'm assuming they didn't test his weight in the changing room. But we don't know the details of that. We're just speculating.
Do you think Ben came out too fast?
No, I think I always believed that his best chance in that fight was to be a bit chaotic, not to stand up and try and be cultured and cultivated with the bigger, much more experienced man who's been in there with the best at super middleweight. He's seen George Groves' world class jab going at him. So Conor Benn, was never gonna be able to establish control in that sort of more orthodox or traditional boxing sense. No, I think what Conor had going in his favour was his speed, his youth, his energy, and his total conviction when he throws his punches rather than his boxing artistry. Anyone that's boxed, even in the amateurs, if you then have a novice come in and you spar with a novice, and this novice is all over the place because they're a bundle of nerves and they're flinging their head around and throwing shots, you get caught because you're trying to play by the rules and they're not playing by the rules. And I think that helped Conor to be a little bit more chaotic and energetic rather than playing by the rules of the skill.
If the rematch is to go ahead, you said you'd like to see it. What does Conor Benn need to do to give himself a better chance and settle the score?
Um, well, I think that process may have already happened because it's not necessarily what he has to do differently. Okay, you can make some adjustments and now you've got the confidence. Don't jump in from so far out. Have the confidence to be a little bit closer to him. Have the confidence to know that you can take his shots. Have the confidence to know that when you get touched, what you do with your head movement works and then punch off it. There's little things he can look at in that fight and expand on. And that's really what it is. It's about expanding on what he's already done in the fight with the knowledge that he does belong in there and he can make it competitive.
From the Eubank Junior's team standpoint, is there an element of maybe we've got away with one here? He was struggling at the weight, his legs don't look great. Let's not do it again. We've got to win. Let's move on to our own weight or even go up to 168.
There's one significant reason why he would want to do it, and that's the amount of money that will be on the table because I don't see how that could do anything other than sell out a stadium again. It delivered, didn't it?
Yeah.
And it
We
delivered in a way
exceeded
where you watch it and you
expectations.
think, right, then round one is effectively going to be round 13. They're just going to be fresher again. Um, I do think that rehydration restriction had a big influence on Junior's ability to perform. I do. And I do believe that would have affected his legs. They keep going on about, well, he's been making that weight for years. Absolutely, he has. But you get into your mid-30s and you carry on trying to make the weight that you were making in your mid-20s. We all know, as men, that's not easy. And I know from when I trained him quite a few years ago, and he was boxing at 160 against Spike O'Sullivan, for example, I know how difficult it was for him to get to 160 then. So to get to 160 isn't easy for him, but then to restrict him with the rehydration absolutely would have played out. But I don't actually think that, personally, I don't think that Conor needs that now. I think Conor has proved to himself and everyone that he belonged there and that he's got something in him to trouble Chris Jr.
Okay. Now, let's talk about a couple of your guys that are in and around the same weight as the two, depending on what weight they're fighting at, I suppose. You've got Josh Kelly, who's making his comeback. We haven't seen him around for a while. Has there been any sort of injury or anything, or is it simply that they couldn't make a fight? There was
Yeah, no, just a bit of frustration, really. So in September, he boxed, and it was supposed to be Liam Smith, and that was a tasty fight. Then, unfortunately, Liam got ill. Ishmael Davis stepped in, who we knew was a banana skin of a substitute, because I know that he's a good fighter, a tough fighter with physical and technical skill set that can make it tricky. So that was more of that fight became a bit like game management. Um, and then we hope, right, well, we got through that one. We had the disappointment of missing out on the fight 6 days before, and then we thought, okay, well, what's going to come next? Let's see what gets offered, and there was nothing really there, and we sat for a while until eventually we said, okay, we can't sit on our thumbs for too long. Let's get a fight made in June. We got that fight made, and let's start to push now, because he's got a good ranking super welter, and he also has a world ranking at middleweight with the IBF. So I'm now actively going to both governing bodies and saying to them, Josh is ready at 154 or 160. Any opportunity you want to give, we're ready to take it. And domestically, any of the fights and the name fights at 154 or 160, we'll take now.
Was it more frustrating the Liam Smith fight not happening when you saw him against Aaron McKenna at the weekend and how well McKenna dealt with him?
No, it was just frustrating at the time.
Okay.
It's not frustrating now.
Good.
And I thought Aaron McKenna, and I thought it was going to be a tricky fight, because because I was working for Sky. I hadn't really studied Aaron McKenna, but I went back and watched some of his fights, and I watched how he dealt with Lima, the southpaw, and realized that this kid's not just in good shape, strong, and full of confidence, but he's actually got game to go with it because of the way that he dealt with the southpaw. So I just thought, right, well, he's not going to go to a fight with Liam Smith without game, and he certainly did. He gave Liam, what he was doing was giving Liam 3 or 4 different looks, so Liam could never get set on one look. Liam likes to be able to read what you're doing and then sneak that jab and get to you. But I thought McKenna was very smart in how he chose the moment to keep changing the look, which meant that Liam had to keep readjusting, which meant Liam never actually got into the fight while he was doing that. And he obviously had the conditioning and the confidence in himself to keep repeating it. And I thought it was a very good performance by McKenna.
And on the Wasserman show that Josh will be headlining, Felix Cash also makes his return to the ring.
Yeah,
You
about time.
guys, yeah, you guys had one fight together so far. Obviously, it didn't go your way. How do you reflect on that now?
Well, where he'd been out the ring for so long, he admitted afterwards that he wanted to make sure that he was going to be okay over the 12. So he started a little bit slow. And then before he even got a chance to get going, he had the cut and the fight got stopped. So for me, it's a nothing situation. And then because Felix is a handful, he's very strong and he's a very aggressive, hard puncher. Now he's coming off a loss. He's a bit like, well, who needs him? Like, this sport is risk over gain. Why does someone want to fight Felix Cash, who's lost for the European title, been out the ring for a long time anyway, but he carries that power and that relentless strength? He's a who needs him. So hopefully get a good win and a good back in the ring in June, and let's hope that something gets offered to him.
Yeah, I mean, he's always had the skill set. He was a good amateur, got all the tools, but never quite made it over the line on the world scene yet. Is that one of the reasons you were attracted to working with him?
I don't know. I know he's a good fighter. I came to spar with Josh. They had a great spar. His dad had asked me a few years ago if I was interested in working with him, and then it came back round, and we just ended up. I like him. I do. Like he's a character, and he's got a strong character, and that can be a bit reckless at times. But I like him. I enjoy his company. I think we get on really well. It's just that his career's lost momentum.
Mm.
Certainly, the momentum pretty much evaporated after his win against Denzel Bentley. But I like him. He and Josh had good spars. I thought we could do something together. Unfortunately, lost to Denzel, but maybe he'll get one more crack at this.
Would you back Kelly over Benn and Cash over Eubank?
Would I back Josh over Conor?
Yeah. And
Yeah,
Felix over Chris.
yes, I would.
Good. Good. Well, good for you. If you'd said no,
Yeah.
you had an uncomfortable day in
Very,
the
very
gym.
hypothetical. That's a very hypothetical question.
Well, yeah, I
'Cause
don't think they're going to
we
fight
know
anyone
it's never
like
going
we
to
cover
happen.
next. But
Never going to happen.
um, big fight was announced earlier this week as well. Kind of worst kept secret. We knew it was coming, but Daniel Dubois will once again fight Oleksandr Usyk. This time in an undisputed title fight. Now Dubois is the IBF champion. What was your initial reaction when you first started hearing this rematch was likely?
I think it's good. I mean, the improvement that Daniel made in these last three fights. Like, if you look at his career just before he fought Usyk the first time, and look at what he's done since losing to Usyk, it's absolutely a justifiable rematch, and it's a great one.
I want to ask you about that because you said earlier with Conor Benn and the improvements he can make, it's mostly about confidence rather than tweaks to the strategy or the game plan. Everyone who's been asked so far,
Combination of both. No, it's a combination of both. It's converting belief into knowing, which he will have done from that first fight, and then looking at the moments where he had success and the moments where he didn't have success and expanding on the ones that he wants to. And it's exactly the same for Daniel.
yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask because most people, when they talk about Daniel and why he's got a better chance this time around, that word confidence comes up quite a lot. Have you, since he's had those last three fights working with Don Charles now, have you seen any technical, tactical improvements to go alongside the increased confidence?
That wouldn't necessarily say technical or tactical. And all sport and all competition is mental, and it's all about confidence and belief and knowing, right? And with his wins, he's got more knowing about himself, and so his belief in himself and his knowing and confidence in himself 100% has improved. I think his improvement is the fact that he's become a 12-round fighter. Jarrell Miller helped him on that one. Um, and he's become a big event winner. Look at the AJ fight. He now realizes that his best attribute is just to let his hands go. He's really well balanced. He's got good spring in his legs, and he's a very strong puncher. I would say a strong puncher rather than a power puncher, but he's a very, very strong, heavy puncher um, with experience now of winning at the top level.
Out of all the heavyweights out there at the moment, does Daniel have the best chance of any of them to beat Usyk, or is there anyone else out there you think style-wise perhaps
I need to think
presents
about
a tougher
that.
challenge?
I need to think about that. I would say, depending on how he goes about it, probably has as because he was doing well in that first fight, but I think he ran out of concentration,
Mm.
endurance as much as anything else. So I think he's probably got as much of a chance as anyone else out there. Not necessarily more, but certainly as much as anyone.
And from Usyk's point of view, is there any chance we'll see him start to decline anytime soon? He's obviously significantly the older man.
Everyone declines, right? It's life. We just don't know when. And when you have such immaculately polished skill sets, the decline doesn't show. The physical decline doesn't show if you are using your skill set and your ring IQ. What will test whether there is a decline physically or not is if someone is able to physically impose themselves on him and make him work in a way that he doesn't necessarily want to. AJ in the second fight with him tried to be a bit more assertive and certainly made him work harder. And I think the second fight took more out of Usyk against AJ than the first fight did. And I think this may well play out the same way. The unknown here is there a decline in Usyk physically and energetically? And if anyone's going to test that, I think Daniel's as good as anyone.
If Usyk remains as good as we've seen him in the last couple of fights, how much chance do you give Daniel of pulling it off?
Oh, it's heavyweight boxing. Firstly, it's boxing, and it's heavyweight boxing. So he's IBF champion, having knocked out AJ. Okay, Usyk didn't knock out AJ, so he has a chance. It's a real fight. It's a competitive fight. The first bell's going to ring, and you're not going to know what's going to happen or who's going to win. That's how much of a chance he has.
So, accepting that neither of us know what's going to happen, what's your best guess? What's your
We,
prediction?
okay, so if you're going to try and predict, the best predictor of the future is the past. So you have to go on form. And to bet against Usyk would be, if you were betting your house, you'd be foolish to bet against Usyk. But having said that, I ain't got to bet my house. I would slightly probably favour Usyk, but I think it's going to be rough for him. And if Dubois won, I would not be surprised.
Good stuff. Now, just before I let you go, who else apart from Josh and Felix are you working with at the moment?
The British heavyweight champion, David Adelaide.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I
Do
knew
your
that.
research, Danny. Come on, I
We've
thought you
we've
were better than
texted
that.
each other about Adelaide. So yeah, really bad. That was the last time we spoke. I looked earlier when I sent you the link for this, and I said so like so much potential. I think was the line
Yeah.
about Adelaide. What is next for him?
Well, there's a rematch ordered with Jamie TKV. I think there's a purse bid due in May for that, and we'll see when that fight's going to happen. So that's definitely going to happen. If it happens soon, then that will be his next fight. If it happens towards the end of the year, then we'll have to see.
The controversial end to their first fight I saw was being discussed by yourself and his trainer or one of his training team, Ben Davison, on Twitter X. Very respectfully on both sides, I must say. We're not used to seeing that on X. But what do you make of that situation now, having had a little bit of time to reflect?
Exactly what I made of it at the time. It's boxing. It's boxing. It happens. I don't think either of them did anything wrong. They both made the same foul, so to speak. But this is boxing. You don't rely on the referee. They say protect yourself at all times. Irrelevant of what the referee's saying, you've got to protect yourself at all times. David didn't protect himself in the fifth round when the ref called break twice and then Jamie clops him with the right hand. And Jamie didn't protect himself when the ref said break twice and then David clopped him with the left hook. They both did identical thing. The only difference was that David was able to take the shot, but Jamie was hurt. That was the only difference. I think a rematch is the right thing to do under the circumstances. On the Sunday morning, David phoned me and said, I want to just give it to him again so I can do this properly. And I had nothing but admiration for that attitude because I said to him, you're doing the right thing. You could probably just try and move on and go to a fight that might get you better money and a higher ranking. But I respect the fact that you don't want to move forward until you right that wrong. And so I'm all in.
What was the kind of game plan for the rest of the fight had it not ended in the time and way that
Well,
it?
look, they're going to do the fight again, so I'm not going to tell you.
Oh,
What I will say is, what we initially planned to do, he didn't quite do at the start of the fight for reasons that we have discussed. So the second fight will look slightly different to the first one.
and we'll have a different referee presumably as well.
All right, let's not dig him out though.
I'm
Like
not
everyone
digging
makes
him out.
mistakes.
I'm just saying. I think it's unlikely TKV's
Why
team will
not
accept
give the
him
rep a chance?
refereeing again.
But why not give the rep a chance to make right what people may think was a bit of an error?
Yeah, but can you see TKV's team accepting him as the ref?
I know. I would.
Yeah, of course you would.
Listen, but here's the thing: David got hit by the same shot. The difference was he didn't count David because David didn't go down. I expect it to be a different referee. What I'm saying is, I'm not digging him out. Everyone makes a mistake, and sometimes when someone makes a mistake, they come back better. You could end up with a different referee, and he makes a different mistake. Who knows? It's boxing.
Very good point. And a good point on which to end. Adam, really, really appreciate it.
Okay.
And I'll do my research better next time. I'll look at my own messages better next time. Cheers, mate. Take care.
All right, mate. See you soon. Take
Speak
care.
soon.
Bye bye.
Bye.